You guys are gonna be jet lagged next week. Oh.
I know. We are officially live. This is the Tesla Beat podcast number 32. Sorry we missed you all last week. The Starship launch was supposed to go that day, so that's why we scrubbed. But it may be just bear with us over the next couple weeks as that we go through the holiday seasons. We still want to be engaged, but the routine may be a little bit off schedule, especially next week. Next Friday, there's the Cybertruck delivery event, and I know pretty much everyone here is going or will be there. And so we're still just kind of going to play it by ear and navigate the next couple weeks as, you know, it's a busy holiday season, event season. So thank you all for tuning in. Please note that, you know, we want to continue to be your source of news. So thank you again for tuning in, and just bear with us over the next couple of weeks as it gets choppy through the holiday season. So, all right, let's get into it. So we have our typical slide. I think the last time we were talking, keep me honest here, guys, it was at like 220. So it's definitely bounced back. I think we were hovering around that 100% year to date number. And let me know in the comments if you want a different view, but I've just been going with this just because it's been the most relevant. But they're hovering about $240.92. This was taken this morning. So definitely not hitting the dip that it has been the past couple weeks. All right, this is obviously a Tesla Beat podcast, but I thought, you know, I had firsthand experience going to the Starship launch. I actually have a video. I'll just show it here. And I know Joe and Jeff, I believe you both saw it. So let's just watch some footage that I actually took.
How much time? 30 seconds?
40 seconds, less than.
Let's go! No way.
One more. This was taken on my iPhone 15 and like zoomed in 15x.
Let's go! No way.
All right. What did you just, you know, we don't want to spend too much time on this, but what was your thoughts? You know, obviously I can give my on the ground feedback too, or maybe we should start there, but what were your guys' thoughts to witnessing this?
I thought it was incredible. I always find it interesting how the media just kind of glosses over the amazing things that Elon's companies do, and this is the largest rocket in history launched, and it was successful by all measures for SpaceX, and all you saw was well, actually not even in television. It was just all in web print. Like it was just all like negative, like it explodes. Oh, SpaceX can't keep a rocket. Like it was just like wild. But I thought it was incredible. It was a good day for America. It's a good day for space. And I just think there's a whole space race happening and people aren't aware of it. And this was just a good step in the right direction for us.
Yeah, the program went farther than it did in the last launch, and you know they learned a lot more information. It looked like a big skyscraper, you know, lifting off the ground. Your footage is amazing, John, and it's great for humanity. It's great for you know, the U.S. It's great for our space program. Great for SpaceX. So very proud of that team.
Yeah, I think for me, especially these first couple ones, like it's different if you go to like Cape Canaveral right now. I mean, they're doing these every 2 days, and so I'm not saying that obviously what they're doing there is amazing and it's needed for taking people to the International Space Station, and then also to not only taking people to the International Space Station, but taking Starlink satellites out there. That obviously those are like important for just getting connectivity and really space exploration. So it's really cool that they've gotten to the point where that's just like they sleep and they send those things up like every 2 days. But the Starship one is supposed to be, for those that don't know, it's 100-person. It's supposed to be a 100-person manned ship with a huge capacity to take food, water, materials, all the stuff that they would potentially need to go to Mars. So we'll see potentially like how far they go, but these initial launches, each one is so key because it builds on top of the other. And I think the big thing for me was the fact that it's separated, because last time it got stuck together and then they obviously had to abort the whole thing. Right. So seeing a separation happen, the hot staging that ultimately helped, and then also seeing the what is it, the launch pad not completely get obliterated, and like we went the next day and we saw it was just completely in ash, or part of it was in ash. As far as like the steel goes, like it was just all blacked out from the insane amount of pressure, but the launch pad was completely intact. Like, so it's just like looking at the innovation rate that they have. Obviously the last launch was 420, but they were ready in September. So everything that they're doing, it's like they are getting better with every stride. So and also too, last time that those engines went off, it took a lot longer for it to finally take off. Like this one, it literally all Raptor engines went and they were flying within seconds. So it was really incredible. And also too, it's just like kind of like like anything, right? There was a ton of Europeans, ton of people from all over the world just coming to see this, and it's as much of it feels like a big community. It's actually a very small community. So definitely, if you can go out to Starbase, it's something worth checking out. It's definitely not something for the it's definitely something you should check out in this lifetime. Especially the earlier on you do it, you might actually get closer to seeing certain things. At some point, once this stuff becomes more normal, they might start removing certain access. Like I know they may be, or if not already, have removed Rocket Garden access. I think Joe had mentioned that, Joe Tegeman. Sorry if I said the name wrong there, but Joe, the guy that covers all the Cybertruck stuff, met him for the first time. So he said that they shut it down, and I think they did, because when I was going by, they had mentioned that, but we'll see. All right, so let's get into some Tesla news, because that's probably why you are here. All right, so let's add this to the stage. Okay, so as we know, one thing that Tesla continues to do is just continuously to just play chess moves. These guys continue to meet with world leaders, build relationships, and this kind of, I think the past two that do you remember who it was? I know it was the Prime Minister of Thailand. He obviously met with the President of China as well. And then was there anyone else that was more recent?
There are some officials from India that were in town.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's the upper right. Those are India. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, these relationships are going to be huge. There was some breaking news in the past couple of days. Again, check the sources, but it sounds like Giga India is going to be starting. They're going to be starting a deal there, but it's just one of those things where welcome in, Amy.
Hi.
How's it going? Good to see you.
I had some firewood being delivered this morning, a whole cord. So
nice.
Yeah, get it in before the snow comes.
Exactly. I'm looking, and I think it's actually not enough. I'm ordering more.
Oh no. Well, we're just getting into all of the world leaders that Tesla's meeting up with. But yeah, so I think, I don't know, any thoughts or maybe quick statements or points on seeing Tesla continue to just meet with these world leaders?
I mean, they're clear number one. And, these countries want access to the best technology, the best, the best R&D, the best manufacturing. So if that were to come within their borders, then they could, their population could be trained, they can learn, they can elevate their skills, and who knows, what comes from that. So that's the flywheel that's turning. Tesla's a clear number one. It's actually not even close. And from a free trade agreement, all these countries would much rather work with, Tesla than work with, let's say, for example, BYD. Not to say that BYD is not going to expand geographically, they will. But these countries are clearing going for clear R&D leadership and manufacturing leadership. And everywhere that Tesla goes, they leave that city, that and that population in a better place than where they found it.
Man, that's a really good point of how they leave it in a better state than when they found it, because I think what's not talked about enough is there's jobs, and these are people's livelihoods that are changing, and these are jobs that they might not have had because manufacturing isn't available in some of these places, at least not to the extent that Tesla comes and brings it. So, I mean, you're talking about families that are going to be like taken care of for like a good while, and it's just because of Tesla. And I think that's why you see like countries like all over just wanting Tesla to be there, wanting Tesla to come there for whatever reason, whether it's to bring just the energy side of it or to bring manufacturing for the vehicles there. But everybody's vying for Tesla. I mean, they are the pretty girl at prom right now, and it's been that way for a few years, and I think a lot of people are just waking up to it.
I think that both Joe and Jeff had excellent points. And not only is it jobs, but we know that, like in Giga Shanghai, Tesla is paying over the average wage and benefit package that other workers in the area are being paid. So it's really, really good jobs. And then beyond that, there's a fear of being left behind. Tesla is at the lead of changing the world over to sustainable energy, and no country wants to be the one that's left behind, that isn't there as all this technology is changing. And then, especially if I have a large presence in legacy industries, you want to start replacing all that contribution to your national gross domestic product. So there's a lot of reasons to bring Tesla in. I know some of the people that were met with made me excited. We saw in Thailand, India, like these other places that would be locations for a new gigafactory and new expansion.
Yeah, I think if you think about it, Tesla is just in the first or second inning of the baseball game for those who are in America. And Tesla is going to be one of those companies that will have potentially generational impact. Like imagine if you get, Giga Thailand building a factory there, this could impact generations of, families to come and work. I know even in Nevada specifically, like their workers, they're making close to $50 an hour. And I think for an area where there are some tech companies there, 50 is a lot, especially for the Reno area. And also too, just the line of work is typically gambling outside of the small tech. And they have other smaller industries there, but Reno has obviously been very known for being gambling, and then also to tourists to go into Tahoe. So I think that all of these people are seeing the writing on the wall. They want access, and I don't know, maybe in just the U.S. we're doing the exact opposite, where we're just like pushing. Not that the U.S. is necessarily pushing out, but they're definitely not. We have our own agenda, which is the UAW, and so I think for that, it's very clear where the allegiances are. So, all right, next slide. So yeah, this week was actually, pretty good news. So I don't know, Joe, I'll pass you the baton on this one.
Yeah, this is pretty incredible. Like that, the FSD beta related introduction and usage had made its way to the user manual in China. So I mean, we talked about this like before, and I know it's like it's coming, and the whole thing like this week has been how Tesla got approval and understanding after he met with Xi. Like everything changed. Like it was like, oh, okay, now like I don't know what conversation they had, but it must have been a great understanding of, oh, now I see what you mean. And yeah, that all that video footage is private. It stays in that country. It doesn't come to America. We don't see it. And so I think like him understanding that was a big part of what happened here. Because now you're going to see FSD beta rolling out to China, which it hasn't had before. And that's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Tesla's got a great presence in China. So they've staged these conversations at the right levels. And even Elon was, the key thing in China is to go and quote unquote show face. And Elon was there, earlier in the year and spent considerable time laying the groundwork for this. So, FSD expansion outside of the US is a very big deal for Tesla. FSD is already making billions of dollars in the US. And, to the key for we talk about partnerships and gaining those external partnerships, but for Tesla, they have millions of vehicles on the road in China and Europe, and be able to expand this functionality and grow it there and then, obviously put it in production would be huge.
Yeah, this is something that I've been tracking for a while. Tesla opened up their Chinese data center as part of the R&D center well over a year ago. And then in May is when we learned that Tesla was hiring 20 people to train FSD in China. And that was right around the time that we also started to hear that there was a new version in the works for Tesla. And then we saw Elon Musk test drive of version 12, the end-to-end neural nets. So we see a lot of different pieces moving and coming together. And I do think that it was this end-to-end neural net solution that made Tesla push harder to start getting FSD in other countries. And at the same time, they hired for China, they also hired FSD testers for around the world. So China is like leading the way here, but it's not just China. And within the last couple of weeks, all the signs in different areas that said Tesla can't drive in here because of the cameras was considered to be a national security risk started coming down in China. So we're seeing a lot of different pieces move into place for FSD to be unveiled there.
Yeah, it's really incredible how I think I was talking to Joe about this the other day. I was talking to him the other day, just how much is happening across the auto industry, or really even AI industry right now, where these things will play in favor for Tesla, I think, long term. And this is all stuff, even at the shareholder meeting, I know we all were there or watched it, and Elon was saying, the next 12 months are going to be pretty nasty for some of these other companies. But for Tesla, it's going to play into our favor. And I think, obviously he doesn't have a crystal ball, but with interest rates going through the roof, with the price to lease a Model 3 is like what, $329, which is insane. I mean, that's I remember having that conversation with my wife 12 years ago. Oh, I should go get a Nissan Leaf. It was like $199 to lease it, and you get access to the carpooling, at least in California. So, all of the stuff with interest rates, the UAW, to obviously the FSD beta coming to China, but just all of this stuff happening across the world, as far as like the macro that's happening, is all playing in favor to Tesla. It's just going to give them more strength. Obviously I don't want to get into all the news we're going to share today, but it's, Tesla's also becoming the next gas station. I mean, most of these companies are just like, hey, I don't want to build the hardware. Tesla already has that. It's kind of like, do I want to build a knockoff, or would I rather just go with the original OEM and buy the NACS standard charger? It's just one of those things, like, obviously companies, we already know companies have made chargers, but for them to be able to become a gas station, I mean, just all of these things that they're now, it's kind of like they have a big backpack, and it's like, as they're moving forward, the plow forward, it's just they're throwing all these accomplishments in the back and just building more and more traction. Last thing I'll say, I know Sawyer put out, I don't have to tweet up, but Sawyer put out something where Ford mentioned, I don't know if it was Jim Farley, but someone from Ford said that, that they're slowing down the transition for some of their plants to build EVs because demand for EVs is slowing down. But even if that is the case, Tesla is making so many of them. And so it's just going to be a clear win for Tesla to continue to just build market share, get their vehicles out, while all these other companies can barely make enough. So, and as they slow down. So I think it's pretty, like you can't make this stuff up, right? It's just, and I think a lot of us have that. We've been around the block with Tesla. So for me, it still feels fresh that they're winning in so many areas. But yeah,
I think is getting missed in that, John, is I think you brought up a great point. The timeline is very interesting to me. In the last month, it was basically the earnings season. A lot of the U.S. automakers have been capitulating, and they're basically been saying that there's an EV slowdown. And after they said that, about 2 weeks after they said that, we got a barrage of macroeconomic data. First off, it's not true. The quarter to quarter, there may be some variation in growth, but overall, 5% of people in the U.S. were buying EVs as of Q3 last year, and now 8% of people are buying EVs. So that's 60% growth, depending on when you cut it. But what I find interesting is they kind of announced these plans to slow EV, and even this morning they said that they're going to slow the battery plant in Michigan. So we don't know when they say slow. I mean, they could be. Are they bringing it from 100% pace down to 5%, or are they bringing it down to 50%? We don't know. But I find the timing interesting, and here's why. They made these announcements. A couple weeks later, a bunch of macroeconomic data that came out that was a lot more favorable. And all of a sudden, the rate cut predictions went from somewhere between September and December of next year, 2024, or not at all. Now it got pulled into July, it got pulled into June, then to May. Now they're talking March. And even yesterday, the Fed Fund futures had a little sliver of possibility of a rate cut even next month. So now the landscape has changed for 2024. And while Tesla focuses on making less expensive vehicles, but the same value per dollar or even better value per dollar vehicle, the actual cost to the consumer is going to be less if rates are cut. And the market's already responded. The bond markets have already shaved about a half point off of the 10-year yield, which is where a lot of the auto rates are based off of. So they're already actually, physically going to be cheaper here in the next month. So anyway, I find the timing interesting of them capitulating, seeing EV slow down. Now the rates compress, and now all of a sudden, are we going to have a little bubble or a little unexpected increase in demand? And which company has all the capacity to serve that demand, and who's actually been growing their capacity is Tesla.
Yeah, no. So and that's why I think I was saying, I was like, yeah, even if demand was slowing down or the EV transition was slowing down, it's one of those things that's still going to play into Tesla's favor. But no, thanks for dropping that knowledge there, because seeing it increase, at least market share wise from 5 to 8%, is going to be huge. It is huge, right? 60% increase.
Well, a lot of that plays into the fact that Tesla is the only one making enough vehicles in volume to meet fleet demand. And that's why you see like a lot of these police companies and taxi companies are buying these vehicles and things like that, because they're the only ones making volume. So yeah, Tesla's fine.
Yeah, I've said before that it's a very strong company that's in a position to accelerate their production capacity through a recession or any type of economic challenges or downturns, whether you want to call it what we've been going through, a recession or not. So Elon Musk, when he came out and said, we're going to be pedal to the metal and we might even sacrifice margins to keep our growth footprint intact, there was a lot of people that were short-term thinkers that were saying, but Tesla's a margin story. You know, Tesla's a growth story, and Tesla has always been a growth story. And when you have reduced demand because of macroeconomic conditions, it just is deferred demand. It defers the demand to a little bit further down the road when the macro conditions improve, and now you have an enormous amount of people all trying to get an EV at the same time, and only Tesla in the position to produce enough EVs to be able to do this. Like Jeff was saying, like a little bit of a demand bubble that's coming up. And now simultaneously, Jeff has done a really good job tracking, follow him on X, the capitulation of all these other manufacturers of realizing that they're not profitably producing an EV, and that they don't have their supply chains set up, and they don't have the engineering right on the car, and they don't have every step of the production where it needs to be. You know, Ford has come out and said, it's not this generation of EVs, it's the next generation of EVs that's going to be big for us, because they recognize at least the mistakes, and kudos to Ford to trying to get themselves in a position to get there, even if it's not right now. So it's very exciting, actually, the changes that are going on. You know, and the second thing is, just because there's not a demand for an ill-produced, ill-conceived, ill-designed car, as some of these manufacturers are putting out with their EVs that are at very expensive price points, doesn't mean that there's not demand for a Tesla, which is all the opposite. A very well-designed, a lot of value for the dollar, like Jeff just said, and a beautiful, fast, sexy car.
Yeah, it comes down to that. I mean, that $68,000 starting Cadillac Lyriq does not have the same performance range capability of the $48,000 Model Y. The $83,000 starting, these were decisions made 2 to 3 years ago by these companies of what the budget from a unit economics perspective, because they thought they could sell at this level and there'd be this TAM available in this quarter to be able to sell product, and they misjudged it. The speed of the Tesla supply chain, though, and how fast they're actually turning inventory and how fast they actually introduce cost reductions, allowed them to come down, just like they went up the COVID supply chain curve and was able to substitute parts in quickly and be able to keep demand up going faster than anybody because they're vertically integrated. The same forces worked for them to take their cost structure down more rapidly than others, and to be able to serve those same products that were in the $60,000 range the year prior. Now they can put them in the $40,000 range and still make more money than anybody per EV sold. So that's fundamentally what's happened and where we're at. And, you know, I think what's going to be interesting is what happens. What are the projections for 2024? I think it's gonna be. I think you have overshoots in both directions. I think everybody's kind of like, okay, batten down the hatches. You know, this is going to be a tough time, and I think you're going to have people undercalling the demand because you have better product at lower prices, and then when the rates fall, that combination together, I think there's definitely going to be some pockets of demand that were not called. And by the way, EV, that's the other thing about EV. What people don't realize, the biggest thing for me that's bullish on EV is the lack of penetration globally. It's in so few areas relative to the globe of where combustion engines are sold. There's a reason for that. There's an infrastructure reason. There's several reasons for that. But that's also just going to expand as time moves on.
Yeah, no, thanks for dropping all that knowledge. Well, both of you, Amy and Jeff. I think it's really, really helpful because I think the thing that I kind of took away was like the deferred demand that will happen with these macro headwinds. And you called out a really good point, Jeff, of just stating the fact that a lot of these companies are building these products. They'll release the prototype 2-3 years before, but then by the time it comes to market, the price is outdated, or at least Tesla has adjusted up their prices or down, whatever that is, because they're living it real time. So it's because they're already producing it. It's kind of like, I can't think of an example right this second, but it's just one of those things where Tesla has a pulse on the market at all times, we know, and that's why they adjust the prices up or down. So as these companies are just trying to put EV products on the market, they're kind of 1 to 2 years behind as far as even pricing. Even if the technology is kind of there, their pricing will be off, and they built their whole margin or the whole car based off of a specific number that they're going to drive towards. So now imagine you have to take that Cadillac Lyric, and even if you brought it down $10,000, that's another $10,000 that they have to eat on top of. So what is it? I think Ford's losing 34,000 per car. I don't know what off the top of my head what GM and some of these other companies.
GM hasn't split it out, but you could put it up there.
Yeah,
pretty high. Yeah, I was just building. Honestly, I was building off of Amy's point about EV slowdown is it's basically being cornered to bad product at the wrong prices. Tesla has good product at the right prices. One more example, I think, for the listeners that's really important is you're going to hear a lot about recession, or we're going to be in kind of a low growth area for the next year, and this is an industry in transition, and you're seeing this is history. Like 20 years from now, history books will show like what happened during this transition to EV. Same thing happened during the in the mobile phone world. There's a smartphone transition that happened really in the 2007 to 2009 timeframe. And guess what was also going on from a macro perspective? We had a great financial crisis. We had banks that were putting ATM limits on people. We had full large banks going under. We had the housing industry going under. That was a massive recession. The U.S. auto industry drew down 36%, peak to trough during that time frame. And why am I bringing up this example? I was in a very similar situation of the mobile phone industry was transitioning from kind of flip phones, candy bar phones, and what we were building when I was at Motorola and working with Google. And then all of a sudden we're like, we're going to launch this new operating system. It's going to be a better product. It's going to have an app ecosystem. It's going to help people be better. And I would say in the Android world and in the iOS world, all of us were sitting around, and I was in those meetings of, do we, we're in a recession, and these are $500, $1,000 items. Are people going to buy these things? And thank goodness we guessed that we think people will, because they're just a much better product than the product that it is replacing. It actually helps people be better in their lives, be more productive. And so we bet on it. And it was a CapEx decision. And it was interesting because we were served with the same kind of things that the legacy auto industries were being served with. It was like, do we invest this CapEx during a slowdown? And we made that decision. By the way, Apple wasn't doing that great during that time frame as well. And they made the decision, the Android folks, we made the decision as well. We said, yeah, we're investing. We're basically doubling for the next several years. And it went from, tens of millions of smartphones per year to now, 1.2 billion per year. But that there was a decision point during that same time frame of macroeconomic slowdown. Will people buy these things? And the thought process went to basically, these are better products that help people be better. And so, yes, they will spend the money for these things. And oh, by the way, there was a subsidizing piece that came in. The carrier stepped up and said, we're going to subsidize these more than we did the prior generation products. Similar thing kind of happening with many governments now, with EV credits and with the IRA credits. So there's a parallel happening here. I just want to draw people's attention to. And I believe EVs are better products. I don't believe it. The facts and data show that per dollar spent, you're going to get better performance, better features, and so forth with driving an EV. And I think the same thing will happen with EVs.
Man, that was freaking fantastic, Jeff. Right on. Because I've been trying to correlate what happened with the phone industry to Tesla for a while now, to try to get people to understand exactly what they're witnessing. And it's really, really hard for people. Luckily for me, luckily and unluckily, I guess, I worked at Radio Shack during this time. So I was a manager at Radio Shack.
Yeah, they were huge. They were
Yeah.
a huge distributor in sales for smartphones.
Yeah, no, and it was wild just to watch, like, while everything was happening in the world, but people still wanted these smart devices. They really wanted these devices. They really had to have them. And you're seeing that now with what they call the Tesla financial stretch. I mean, people are going from a Corolla to a Model 3, and you see now with the Model Y, I mean, that car is like 20,000 more than the cheapest vehicle that you could buy. You know what I mean? And people are still buying it. It's still a world leader because people will spend the money on a good product. Good point, Jeff.
And if not buying a brand new one, they're buying a used one, right? Like I have people that I know that are, can only afford, let's say, $30,000, $25,000 to $30,000. And some of the 2018 Model 3s are down at that price. And so these are great cars that are going to be able to go very long distances, and you're going to be able to kind of beat up like a Corolla in a lot of cases, which has always been known as one of the most reliable cars for the past 2 or 3 decades. So it's one of those things where, I just echo all of the things that you're saying. Jumping into some other news, Tesla Energy. Tesla has now confirmed its plans to take on electricity retailers in Australia, saying it will seek to combine rooftop solar batteries and EVs and disrupt the business models of traditional incumbents. So I think in this case, it's just, Tesla continues to just move forward and change the business model that has been right in front of it, especially in Australia. I know, Amy, you want to explain?
Yeah.
But this is inevitable.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amy.
I agree with Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
No, that's all I was saying was that it was inevitable, but go ahead.
There's been a trial in Australia, and Tesla even provided power walls to people, and especially some people that were low income in the trial to do a distributed utility. And this news and announcement tells us that trial went exceptionally well. Tesla has actually had licenses in many countries already to operate as a global distributed utility. And so this is just another potential business area of disruption for Tesla, because as we move away from these big utility plants and we come to become more distributed with solar on people's rooftops, and we need backup battery power sources then, like the Powerwall, and then we need an ability to share and to handle the intermittent nature of the energy, and that's like the smart batteries and the control systems and the AI and everything else that Tesla is very already well positioned to do, has excellent products in that area. And Tesla doesn't stand still. Tesla is constantly innovating and improving these products. So I'm very, very excited about this. We also know they have a trial program in Texas where they haven't made that next step yet in the announcement like they just did in Australia, but it's going to be essential as we move to all EVs. The need of the grid needs to be twice as big. If we move to heat pumps in most houses, then the grid needs to be 3 times as big as it is at present day. And where is all that extra power coming from if we don't move to a distributed model and solar on people's rooftops and wind and hydro and all these other possible energy sources?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's some extra feedback, but I think it'll be really interesting. I mean, they're already doing it, the virtual power plant kind of, even in the Bay Area or California, really, where you can sell your energy back to PG&E. And so, like, I got a check this past year for I think about $150 just for 3 or 4 days of selling my energy back to PG&E. I think they were paying something like $7 a kilowatt. I mean, maybe that was high. But it was only during specific hours, like from 6 to 9 during huge heat waves, or and it was last September and November. It's just like, I think there was a lot of heat still throughout those days, and they were just selling that. So it's interesting how they clearly, Amy, you've been tracking what they've been doing there. So it's great to see that the pilots went well and that they're doing that, but it's just only going to help their energy business as they move out there. All right, so this is kind of just more of like, I think for Tesla to be able to get this nod from the DeLorean designer was just kind of like a pat on the back. He said, when you step outside the norms, it's almost always seen as a provocation. It happens in all fields, from furniture to cooking, etc. Everyone wants to distinguish themselves. It's a market necessity, and the Cybertruck will surely be successful. I'm sure of it. I'm convinced it will find its admirers. So I think that's a huge pat on the back, especially for the Cybertruck, because they're the DeLorean designers is the he kind of partially paved the way back in the 80s for this, to have one of the first production Falcon doors. So really cool to see that.
Yeah, I just say, I mean, Tesla's really putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, the DeLorean was a special product and launch, but very, very low volume. And Tesla is basically saying this is going to be the most, obviously it's the most unique truck design or even auto design ever. And concurrently, it's going to be high volume when we get everything to scale. I mean, if you look back on the decisions 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, to get to this point, I'm sure it wasn't a straight linear path of course we're doing this, and of course it makes sense. I'm sure they question themselves. We've even heard in the last several months, they've questioned themselves. But I'm just, from my experience of like the amount of capital that they procured and the amount of components they bought from their supply base. I mean, they're putting, billions of dollars on the line here. This isn't, let's see how this goes. And if it's successful, great. I mean, they're really putting themselves out there. And so I just don't think that's recognized or known enough of like how much it's risk, but it's also, it's so bold for them to do that. Just imagine if Cybertruck was just another traditional looking truck. Be like, okay, well, Tesla's getting in the truck game. Well, there's 6 other announcements that look just like it. And the fact that this looks so special, I just believe it's going to break. Again, I've never owned a pickup truck, and I have one on order. I'm going in, I'm refreshing the screen a couple times a week to see if there's any news or anything had changed. And I've never owned a pickup truck before. How many other people are like me out there? So I just, hats off to Tesla for taking this risk. It's much bigger than any risk, maybe in any product line that I can't even think of.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Jeff. I mean, the risk taking that Tesla did alone on this but that's what makes greatness, right? You don't have you don't have any of the accolades, any of the fame, and any of the appreciation unless you take those risks. And I think this will be one of those moments. I mean, Jeff even said this before, like just one of those moments in history that people will look back on and realize that they were there when this happened. I mean, people love to downplay it and love to try and call it ugly and do all this crap and say all these things, but none of that changes the fact that even at the minimal showrooms that this thing is popping up at all around the country, like the crowds are coming. People want to see this thing. People want to experience it. And that's just even before it hits the roads. Like, this is going to be a game changer.
Yeah. Amy, you're on mute.
With the locking bed, it's going to start buying for the coolest soccer mom car or that's out there. You know, it has the extended cab. It's a very, very big in the interior. It has the rear screen to entertain children, and then you can throw all their muddy sports gear in the back. That'll start to sound really appealing. And then of course it's a Tesla. So let's always remember that Teslas are some of the safest cars on the road, which is an absolute amazing thing. Imagine taking a Cybertruck on a road trip. You can put all the stuff that you're trying to bring with you in the bed. You can have the whole cabin area just for your family without everything migrating in. I mean, that'll be an amazing feature, and it has FSD that will be available. So eventually, we won't. Most people, they're not there yet because I know the FSD take rate isn't as high right now, but they won't be driving themselves on these road trips. They'll be able to enjoy the journey to their vacation as well as the vacation.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is this is one of the most polarizing vehicles, if not the most polarizing vehicle ever made. It has a huge following. I mean, I can't tell you some of the content we put out and how well it's just done, especially like on places like TikTok and other places, like me just driving by this car. And next thing I know, the truck or that video has 7 million views. I mean, and this is with, the user base on TikTok is obviously, teenagers or the younger crowd, early 20s. And the amount of people that are at least watching this car, it's really mind blowing, right? I mean, I went to Santana Row Sunday night. I heard about it, that it was there, went immediately, and I was actually one of the probably first 15 to 20 people in, and mine just continued to start to grow, especially before the thing shut down. So, or they closed for the night. So, and then the next day, even I know people in San Diego and other places, like people drove hours to go see this. We had the cyber hooligan guy from Sacramento. He drove down to Santana Row, but people are willing to drive for these cars. So I don't think people really truly understand what this is going to mean for the trucking industry. So I know.
Well, real quick before you go on to the next thing, the point that people are kind of missing about this too is that we've seen it. So, I mean, we already know, but there is a huge population that hasn't even seen it, and seeing it in person is not like seeing it in the photos. And that distinction makes a world of difference. Even for people that were just mild admirers, once you see it in person, you realize like, holy cow. Like even the cyber hooligan guy, he was like, yeah, I underestimated this. This is going to be amazing. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just, I mean, that effect is going to happen to a lot of people once these things start hitting the roads.
I was going to bring up the same point. It's totally different in person. You're getting these views, John, with you're on with the content on the internet and the photos and the videos. Just when you see it in person, it's one of those things that looks that much better in person. So I think that effect is out there. This will be a new there'll be a cyber category, I believe. I predict, of vehicles, and this is a category breaker. I think this is going to be an amazing product.
Yeah, there was one iconic video that actually did really well. I recycled the content, but it was me at I believe it was the shareholder meeting, and they had the Cybertruck right in the middle of the walking into it, and like again, it was sunny that day, and literally I'm like walking by it, and again, there's just very few things that you see that are just, I don't know if the word's beautiful or just it felt like it was a movie, like literally a stainless steel truck in the middle. Like it literally looked at like it was out of a movie, kind of like almost going to Starbase. I mean, just seeing this thing, it's like really like they built this thing, but this thing is like it's just that polarizing. It's just that well made, I guess you could say, but it literally just looks like the future. And so when you step and you see that, you just get drawn in.
It's like the
Got
architect
Starbase
guy
technology.
some of his buildings, when you first see the drawings for it, you're like, what is that? And then you realize it's sculpture made into a building. And the Cybertruck is sculpture as a pickup truck. I mean, it is unbelievably striking and a head turner and a stunner as you see it in person. And some of it is the way that the light plays off of the metal and moves around it. That it's just impossible to actually capture in a photo or a video.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing the truck on the road more frequently, but I'm also too the event. But it is going to be one of those things that just sticks out. Two things I wanted to end on. It kind of stinks that it's crazy how sometimes just time flies by. But we kind of touched on it, right? Giga India news. Sawyer put out some news that said India is closing in on an agreement with Tesla that will allow them to ship EVs into the country from the next year and then set up a factory within 2 years, which is just absolutely insane. And then the last thing, and again, maybe we could just get final thoughts and we can close out. The last thing that I wanted to put out, and thanks, Joe, for the amazing deck and title, GM kisses the ring. Obviously, they did in the US. They're going to be kissing the ring in China. But the GM now will have access to the supercharger network for Tesla China. So, those were two big announcements, but maybe we could just do a quick roundtable on thoughts on those two big pieces of news.
And a quick one.
Go
sorry,
ahead, Jeff.
I just want to say on India, I if you rewind the tape, I think I talked about this maybe a year ago or so, but I always thought that this would happen, which would be as you get closer to a deal and the terms are locked, that part of the terms of that deal would expand to an import agreement that would allow Tesla favorable import license and duties while they're actually building their facility. And it looks like that's happening. And nobody's talking about this. And I get it. I understand the demographics of India, but there's over 1.5 billion people. And if you can import Teslas, probably I would guess Berlin factory. So this could really pump up the Berlin factory. I mean, there's going to be a market. There's going to be buyers for that in India, and especially if there's any subsidies involved. So keep an eye on this because it got zero play really in any kind of media. But if the India market opens up for Tesla imports while Tesla's building a mega facility there to do auto and energy, I mean, look out. This is not in anybody's numbers.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'd had a comment on one of our videos that said how many millionaires there are in India, and I was completely shocked by the number.
It was 700 or 800 million.
Yeah, it's a really large market for Tesla. And once again, just like with China, when Tesla was the only manufacturer that's been able to own their own factory in China, and then they were able to own their own energy factory in China, which is a second exemption. And in India, many people that their specialty, all they do is set up manufacturing in India. It's like, it cannot be done. Tesla will not be able to even import parts into India, let alone import cars. into India while they're setting up the supply chain. But now we're hearing the exact contrary, that the Indian government has recognized the need of Tesla to be able to stage the immense amount of infrastructure that's required. And why does Tesla need to do that? Because India has car manufacturers, but what they don't have is massive scale EV manufacturers. And what the domestic in the United States car manufacturers have shown, it is very different to produce an EV. It is Tesla not only having to set up a $5 billion gigafactory themselves, but all their suppliers having to set up from a couple $100 million to a $10 billion factory themselves to be able to supply Tesla. You need all those elements of the supply chain to be able to go in somewhere like India. So this import deal is something that I'd almost given up on. I was hoping for an import of parts, not necessarily an import of EVs. And once again, Tesla is executing on a different level. They're superheroes in what they're in the amount of cooperation that they're able to get with governments, and it's a true partnership that Tesla will create with India going forward. Tesla will help them set up an entire new industry like they did in China. China is now the leading exporter of EVs in the world because they allowed Tesla to come in, and India sees themselves falling behind, and Tesla is going to completely upend that equation for them.
So I just wanted to restate, I think I said 700 to 800 million millionaires. That was not right. It was 800,000. Sorry. Got my thousands and millions mixed up. Joe, did you want to, any thoughts on the past two things? Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
Not really. I mean, I know Amy and Jeff have really been following the supply chain on India a lot more closely than me. But I will say that just once Tesla made that deal for China, it was a game changer. And I just imagine like just the first of many game changers that Tesla's going to make. So I'm just looking forward to everything that they have planned that we don't even know they have planned, like these chess moves, like throughout the year with all the gas stations and stuff. I mean, it's just like, who thought they would be? We thought they could license the supercharger network, but who thought they would actually sell superchargers to gas stations? They function on such a high level of trying to make sure that their mission is complete that I can't even imagine what they have planned next. I know Jeff's got a hard stop, so I'll stop there.
It's okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you to all of our hosts. Please give them a follow. They are tagged on X, also on YouTube. There's their information. Also, feel free to patronize them if you're thinking about buying a Tesla. All of the referral codes are there. We appreciate you tuning in. Sorry, it's been a little bit choppy. I know this upcoming Friday, we will not be here as well, just because of Black Friday and Thanksgiving celebration. We're working on a time for next week that may work for our hosts, because next Friday, the majority of us may be in Austin attending the event. So Friday will, Joe's just ridiculous. But, next Friday, we'll probably just still be in transit. So we'll figure out a time next week. So just bear with us as we navigate the next couple of weeks, especially with the holidays and all that's going on. But thank you again for tuning in and for being a part of the show. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.